Hey, welcome, um, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Um, my name is Stan Van Orbeek. I'm the CEO and founder of Simply Bread, company trying to provide tools and other products for everything related to microbaking and starting your own bakery. And today we have Karen Quinones, who is a baker in LA County, and her bakery is called Wildflower Artisan Sourdough. Welcome, Karen, and I think we're gonna give a little walkthrough presentation on how you started your microbakery and everything that brought you there. And maybe you need to give us a little introduction first, a little bit of background, and how did you get started and get passionate about this?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I think it started back in 2019. I went to Paris for the first time with my family. And I think that was the first time that I've tasted bread that I felt was so different from what we get here in America or what I was used to eating here. And so I believe it was Valentine's Day 2020. My husband and I took a class. Believe it or not, I think it was Costa Mesa, and it was like a laminating bread class where we made croissants and things like that. And they talked about learning bread. I don't think it was sourdough. I think it was just yeasted bread that I wanted to sign up for because of my trip to Paris. And then March 2020 happened and the pandemic broke out. I remember they had to cancel the class, but I was interested at that moment in learning about bread. So when everything kind of slowed down, I figured, well, I can probably teach myself. Everyone else is learning sourdough right now. So I taught myself how to do it. And it was really kind of a nice, just creative outlet for me during a really difficult time. It was kind of a confusing time. Nobody really knew what was going on or how long it would last. And so I just kind of went down the rabbit hole and I never stopped. So I think my first loaf was May of 2020. My sourdough starter is 3 years old this month. May of April, Moscow is what I call it. And she's 3 years old, and I've been sourdough since about May 20. This here that you see in my house.
Yes.
Can you hear me a little better? Okay. We're looking at you see this in 1912.
Karen, I think you froze for a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
We good?
I hear your video. Sorry, I don't. Your video is not moving, but I think your audio is coming back.
Okay. I'll just keep here.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Wait. I think you're back. Actually, are you?
Okay. Great.
Okay. I think you're coming. Okay. I think you're coming back. Yeah. Feel that the
Well,
pandemic. Yeah. The pandemic didn't solve the internet connectivity problems. Hey. So sorry. I think we left off where. I think we left off where you did the baking course.
Yes.
And then it got a bit choppy.
Yes. So I did the baking course, a laminated dough where we learned about croissants. And then I signed up for a bread course, but that bread course was canceled because of the pandemic. So I ended up teaching myself sourdough.
Okay.
And from then, since I believe April 2020, I started my own sourdough culture. And then I made my first loaf in May of 2020. So it's been 3 years next month that I started making sourdough.
And at what point did you decided to sort of start a business?
Right.
Was that sort of like, was it more natural, or I
Yes.
think it's, I was a little bit in the same phase, right? I did a little bit the same. I was like, oh, so many people were asking my bread, and I was like, maybe, that's what I want to do. So how did that came along?
It was very organic. What I started doing is, most recipes, you'll have 2 loaves per recipe. And
Hmm.
one loaf was plenty for my family, so I'd always bring an extra loaf to my job, my day job as a registered nurse.
Hmm.
And so I would just bring extra stuff every time I baked, and it got to the point where people were like, "Well, can I just buy some from you?" And I was like, "No, I'll just bring it in when I can." And they're like, "No, here's some money and just get it to me when you can." So it was kind of one of those things that it just started on its own. And I started following a lot of sourdough bakers on Instagram. And I slowly figured out that there's this thing called a cottage baker. I didn't know prior that since 2013 in California, we were allowed to sell shelf stable food from our home. We can actually make a business from our home kitchen.
Hmm.
So that was all kind of something that I learned on the fly via Instagram. And as I started making more and more, and my orders became more regular, I
Hmm.
looked into cottage food operator permit, which allowed me to do it legally. And I did that for about a year. And it was horrible. And I finally found the simple button, and that was a complete game changer. At that point, once I had that, I changed my project A, which was allowing me to sell directly to the customer. I went to cottage B, which allows me to sell indirectly through a cafe, coffee shop, restaurant. Because I think what the Simply Bread oven did for me after working out of one oven for a year was it gave me my time back, and it
Hmm.
really allowed me to diversify and how much I could bake. And
Hmm.
my bake days were so much more worthwhile. Where when I was doing one oven baking, I would sell 12 loaves. It was about two every hour.
Hmm.
So when you're working for 6 hours for 12 loaves, financially,
Yeah.
it's not worth.
Yeah, yeah. I just had Gio over, who was a local baker here in Southern California, and he had the same thing where it's like spending 14 hours with his kitchen oven. I mean, that's why I started building the oven. Um, Karen, yeah, you've been breaking up a little bit. It seems to be better, so let's try to keep at it. Um,
Okay.
I I think we have a few slides on sort of what you need to start your micro bakery.
Yes.
And I think this session we're doing is more on the equipment. I think we did another one where it was more on permitting and pricing and social media presence. I think we're talking now a little bit more about equipment. So
Yes.
let's see. I've got a few slides on it. I think you talked a little bit about the oven, which is for most people, not only because we build an oven, but just in general, like an oven is a sort of the game changer a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Um, so you got an oven. That was sort of the first thing, and what's next is space, right?
Great.
And
So
setting up your space, right? Because I think you're still baking from your kitchen sort of living room, right?
yes, kind of like little informal dining room, kitchen. I have a galley kitchen, so
Hmm.
I'm able to kind of it flows into the formal dining room, which I guess legally you can do, so long as
Okay.
it's connected to the kitchen. But you see here, I have 12 loaves. When I do 500-gram loaves, I can do five per deck.
Okay.
I wanted to demonstrate here. You can do four or five per deck, so you can do 12 to 15 loaves.
Okay.
Um, and for me, like I said, I believe this is what made me a bona fide business. And
Hmm.
I think that that's why, if people are kind of on the fence about it, I understand it's an investment. But when you think about the time back that you get, or even the time that you're able to do more once your business grows, it's 100% worth it, as opposed
Hmm.
to doing 12 loaves over 6 hours. You can do 12 loaves in 40 minutes.
Now, yeah. And what's your average selling price in your county? Sort of. I mean, you're in LA, right? Which is sort of fairly expensive, and prices are really relatively high.
Right? You mean
What?
per loaf?
Yeah.
I charge $12 per loaf,
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah,
and
that's
that's
something to see. That's actually not too bad. I mean, I went to a bakery in Silver Lake in East LA, and like a buckwheat loaf was $22. So and that was just the start run, bakery. Um, Great. So 12 to 15 loaves, 850 to 900 grams. Do you do? I mean, you do also do a lot of focaccia, right? You do focaccia.
actually, like, I do, my bake day consists of, loaves, it consists
Mhm.
of, sticky buns, cakes, hand pies, cookies,
Mhm.
and quick breads. So that's like banana bread. I have a pistachio cardamom loaf. Those are quick breads in bread tins. And I also sell bread tins. So my
Okay.
day is full and I
Mhm.
bake everything from my Simply Bread oven except my hand pies. I do like my convection oven for a hand pie
Mhm.
because it makes the crust a little fluffy.
Mhm. So yes.
Pretty much
Mhm.
everything else goes in the Simply
So how
Bread.
many hours of baking is that on a bake day?
Okay, so it's a lot because I'm mixing my private sales with my wholesale.
Okay.
I have one bake day, so I'm baking for about 10 hours
Wow.
of baking. Um,
Wow.
it's a long day, but it allows me to do a lot in one day, and then I get my weekends off. That's just kind of how I set it up.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, good. Um, Karen, next to the loading table and the space, mixers, containers.
Right?
I think we've got the same mixer actually. I've got, I don't know if you can see it now, it's just like out of the frame, but I think I've got the same mixer.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about, mixer
Yes. So I
containers?
the FAMAG or FAMAG, I'm not sure how to properly pronounce it, spiral mixer. Now, this is a mixer that has a dough attachment only. So it doesn't have a whisk or a paddle attachment. This is specifically for dough. So this is an IM20, which means I could do about 20 kilo 20 loaves per batch, which when I first started, that was really short sighted of me to get such a small mixer because now I have to mix about 4 batches in this, which makes my day really hectic, my dough day.
Mhm.
If I had to do it all over again in hindsight, and if I could give anyone an advice, go a little bigger than you think because as your business grow, it may not happen overnight, but it will happen and I
Mhm.
would say get the bigger mixer so that your dough day isn't spread out with doing several batches to get to the orders you want to do. Because once you have a Simply Bread oven or some type of commercial bread oven, you're going to be able to do, like you said, 12 to 15. If this only does 20, I have to do 4 doughs. I have to do focaccia dough. I have to do my enriched doughs for my sticky buns. I have to do a wheat variety, and then I have to do a country variety. So my dough days are very long because I got such a small mixer. So
Mhm.
I would advise this is an IM20. They say it does 20 kilograms, about 68% hydration. I'm around 75 to 77% hydration. So I usually can only get about 18 loaves out of it or 18 kilos
Okay.
um, out of that. So I would say go
Mhm.
for the 30 or 40. But the great thing about this is it's on wheels, so you can move it around. It's like my little R2D2. I love him so much. And like the bowl actually turns and the dough hook stays stationary and there's a
Mhm.
breaker bar in the middle. And so that
Yeah.
breaker bar and the base turning creates really good gluten development in a way that you can't get from a KitchenAid.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very different experience when you use it for the first time, right? I mean, I use big Hobarts, right, in commercial kitchens, and that's even like a little bit like a KitchenAid where the dough sort of climbs up the hook, and it's so hard, and you don't have this with the spiral
Mm-mm.
um, mixer. They're not very expensive either. I
Right.
feel for the value you get because mixing by hand, if you're doing 100 loaves a day, that's sort of like you can maybe it's also a bit of a limiting.
Right. That's
Factor.
carpal tunnel waiting to happen. That's the nurse in me.
And Karen, or the one you have, is it 110 or 220?
It's 220, yeah, so it uses the same
Okay.
outlet that I use for my Simply
The
Bread.
oven. Oh, okay. So you use the same outlet. Okay. Okay. And you would even advise, because I've got a smaller one, the tabletop one. Here, you've got one on wheels, but you're even advising to get even the bigger one, right?
Yes. If I was advising, if you're thinking about a Simply Bread oven or an oven that can do that capacity, then you really should be thinking a bigger mixer. So even the IM30 would be great. I'm saving up for an IM30 or an IM40. I'm gonna keep this one because I could
Sure.
do my smaller batches of wheat, and then I can do my bigger batches because the country loaves are the ones that sell the most.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, And then can you tell us a little bit about how many racks you have? Because, you're outputting quite a few loaves, right? So
Yeah,
um, can you tell us a little bit about cooling space
right.
and then cold storage? Because I think that's also a question a lot of people, if you push it to what you're doing, like how many fridges do you have?
Yes. So I'll start with advise people who are starting to build their microbakery. I advise getting just a metro shelving rack because it's double duty. So most of us we have space issues, we have storage issues. I've seen some microbakers get the sheet pan racks where they hold the cookie sheets and like they're slide-in slots. Those are great, but I think they're really limiting. So I ended up buying this, I believe, at Home Depot, this shelving rack. So it holds everything. I have my Cambros, focaccia, um, baking pans, my tins. You could see my flour is held here. All my packaging, my apron, my hat, everything I need for the baking day. And then I also use it as cooling. So you'll see in the other picture, I was cooling all my breads and my cookies and my hand pies using it. So it's a duty
Mhm.
storage. So I would recommend getting one of these Metro shelving racks over the sheet pan racks. Unless you're specifically a cookie person or where you're just using cookie sheets, then I would say, okay, that's fine. But if you're a sourdough baker and you have varying things that you're cooling in varying sizes, I would say definitely stick with just like a metro shelving. They have little S hooks that you can put on the side where you can hang your hat, your apron. You can really just kind of customize that however you like using it. Um, and then next, dry storage. Fortunately, I have a pantry where you can see I'm hiding the very bottom of the middle picture. You can see there's 25-pound Cambros in there where I keep my flour. So there's 4 in there. So that's holding about 100 pounds of flour. I have bannetons. I have all my cooking and baking little sheets in there. I have my scale. I have my lame, and then most importantly, my espresso, and then a mortar and pestle and some more bannetons. So I hold that all in just one of my cabinets. And then the next one is cold storage for us who cold proof. I have an Insignia. It's a 21 cubic foot refrigerator that's completely dedicated to cold fermentation. You can see it is, there's no freezer attached. It is completely a refrigerator from top to bottom.
Mhm.
It houses a lot of my flours in the door and a lot of my whole grains. I gave you a kind of, it's a little bit of a Tetris game you have to play when you're doing lots of loaves because you have to stack them on top of each other. I've seen some people use cooling racks that they put on the bottom and then put another stack and then cooling racks and then another stack. So they're making their own shelving with cooling racks.
Yeah.
Um, there's lots of ways to do it, but this Insignia fridge is, I bought it on Amazon, and I've had it for 3 years now, and I haven't had a problem with it yet.
Mhm. Mhm. Maybe going back to the oven and mixer, did you need to do something special electricity-wise? Did you get an electrician, or was that straightforward, getting an outlet? And
Yeah, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
if the electricity was sort of straightforward.
Yes, I actually had to have an electrician come out to put in that specific, is it a 240 volt outlet?
Mhm.
I had to have it, and I only have one outlet. And because I didn't want to pay for two. And for me, because I had it permitted, an electrician came out, it was $700 just to put the outlet in. So I only have one outlet. So that's why I have a dough day when I use that outlet for my mixer. And then I have a bake day where I use that outlet for the Simply Bread oven. So eventually I'm going to pay to have another outlet. But I think in order to do that, I need to upgrade my panel, my electrical panel.
Okay,
So we're going to hold on that for a little bit.
a whole other. Mhm. Um, and maybe as we have a little bit more time, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing both on sort of the private sales and the wholesale? sales? Because I always found that interesting, right? There's a lot of people who seem to be doing, a lot of our customers seem to be doing that mix of having like one or two wholesale accounts to just, can you tell us a little bit about how that came about and what the advantages is of it?
Okay, so I do have one major wholesale buyer. He is a coffee shop owner right here in my downtown area. And he found me. We were doing a small business Saturday. And as a thank you, I gave him a loaf for letting us use his cafe. And he and his wife tasted the loaf and said that they loved the sourdough so much that they wanted to use it as part of their avocado toast that they do at the cafe. So on the day that we came to meet, he's like, just show me what else you make. I want to know what else you're doing. So I brought him pretty much my whole repertoire, and he bought almost everything. So how that works is you decide what your wholesale price is or your wholesale discount is. I know the market going rate is anywhere from 20 to 30% discount that you would give your wholesale buyer. I give him a 25% discount, and he sells things for what I sell on my website. So whether you buy it from me or if you buy it from him,
Okay.
it's the same price. Great. But as a microbaker, this has kind of really kept my business afloat, these wholesale accounts, because it is a once a week order that you can rely on, that you can build upon with your private sales. And as any microbaker will tell you, there's so many ebb and flows.
Yeah.
Um, you're crazy busy come the holidays, and sometimes January, February, when everyone is dieting, sometimes there's no orders. It's like feast or famine. So what the wholesaler buyer does for you is just that steady stream of income that you can rely on. And so for me, it's been incredible. For me, he keeps expanding his orders.
Mhm.
He just needs to feel confident that it's going to sell because he
Right.
pays for it in full. And if it doesn't sell, that's his loss.
Right.
So he's slowly upping his orders. And so with my private sales and his wholesale, they're keeping me very busy. Yeah.
And do you have, I mean, you're in Los Angeles, so flour and ingredients isn't probably the biggest challenge, right? I know we have our friend Drew at King's Roost, who is distributing central milling, which I also use. I think it's behind me. So I mean, we've got pretty good access. Did you try anything else, or are you milling your own flour, or is there
Yes.
something you have some advice for people who are starting out
Right. Well,
in flour on the ingredient side?
on the ingredient side, that's something I like to talk about is finding when you become a microbaker is finding your bakery ethos. So my bakery ethos is I like to use as many heritage or heirloom grains as possible, and I get that from King's Roost in LA. And I specifically look for farmers who are doing regenerative farming. So it's local, it's organic, it's good for the environment. So that has been something that has just been something that I've really tried to stick to. It makes my margins tighter because heritage grains are double the cost of just regular what we call commodity flours or just the regular hard red wheat that we see everywhere. So this is just my small way of investing in farmers who are kind of doing right by our environment and also trying to preserve those heirloom grains because if no one buys them, they're going to go away. And these are grains that have been here for 200 years. And if we allow them to go away, that's really, in my opinion, that's a really sad thing. So I personally, and that's kind of, it is also a selling point because it is really important to a lot of people as well
Mm-hmm.
that someone is, mindfully putting their dollars into preserving heritage grains, which means you're keeping the biodiversity. Um, and there just seems to be a market for it as well. So for me, it benefits me, and I feel good about it as a baker as well.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, we've been talking to Anarchy Mills in
Northern California. He's building small, medium-sized flour mills. I mean, these are fairly large flour mills actually. And he just sent me 10 pounds of flour. So I'm very curious, together with the brand. So I'm very curious to try that. And saying he grows his own wheat, mills his own flour. And if people who are listening in, and if you're in need for a list of local grades, local heritage grades, local millers, there's quite a few millers out there actually. I mean, surprisingly, across the U.S. and Canada, there's quite a few people growing heritage grains or organic grains and even milling them. So it's not as difficult as it sounds to get.
And you can also, when you find them, you can also email them and tell them that you're interested in buying directly from them. And like you said, it's one of those things where I just recently looked up Los Angeles County, which is huge. Los Angeles County is like its own country. It's so big that there are only 322 cottage bee food operators. So we are the little guys, and there aren't a lot of companies or bread companies investing in heritage grains. So if we're the little guys, if we're all investing in these type of things, there'll be a market for them eventually, you know? And so I think and also because I'm a baker who works with heritage grains and regenerative farm, it really sets you apart in the market as well. So if you're looking to be different from another microbaker or from a bakery that's down the street, your selling point is that you're using heritage heirloom grains that have been there, that are non-GMO, that are local, that are organic, and it makes you special. And
Mhm.
it makes you kind of okay to charge a little bit more for that because it costs more.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Um, Great. Maybe I don't know if we already have um, some questions coming in. I think we were going to talk a little bit about the oven. Do you want to sort of give us a little bit the overview why you choose for the Simply Bread oven, and what was the difference for you?
Yeah. There are many things. The first one was, if I'm using the oven, and if there was ever a problem where things broke down or I had a technical problem, I didn't want to have an oven that was made overseas, where I would have to wait for a part or wait for someone, in a different time zone to get back to me about what's wrong with my oven, how to fix my oven. So I had to think about the loss of revenue that I would get if I wasn't able to fix my oven. Could it be 3 weeks? Could it be 6 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Waiting on an answer, waiting on a repair. So that was a big thing. And made in USA, that was, and the fact that it's Santa Ana, which is like 25
No.
minutes from my house. So for me, that was just like, wow, if I have a problem at this point, I could drive my SBO to the place and make sure everything's okay and be up and ready to go the next day. So for me, turnaround time was really important.
Yeah.
Um, I love the steam injection. I know most people, they have to use the pump thing and then they have to spray in there. I was mentally prepared to do that but the fact that I could just push a button and not have to think about it, and not have to have an ugly sprayer in my house makes me very happy as well. And that large view window. I mean, when you first get your Simply Bread oven, it's really hard to pull yourself away from the viewing window because,
Yeah.
most of us baked in Dutch ovens, and we had to just pray that we got a good air and pray that the oven spring was good. And then when you go from, a Dutch oven to a Simply Bread oven, you're just like, it's like Christmas. You're just staring at it and you see the oven spring and your ears are forming, and it's such a beautiful thing that I'm like, I could be doing something, but I'm just staring here in front of this window looking at the beautiful bread. So that was really nice. It wasn't like a little, hole that I got to look, hoping that I'm not, browning too much my crust. And then lastly, it's a beautiful machine. Aesthetically, it's minimal.
Mhm.
It's clean. It fits. I don't know if you can see. It's right there in the corner, right here is it, and I don't mind having it in my kitchen. It's not ugly. It doesn't look like an industrial piece of equipment. It's modern looking. It's clean. It's sleek. So all of those reasons were the reason why I chose Simply Bread. I think that it was the best. It was the best large investment I made.
Great. Thanks for the positive feedback. Um, I see a few questions coming in. One from Sierra, who's also a customer up north in the Bay Area, almost East Bay. Sierra is asking, any tips for social media presence? Doing everything by yourself?
Yes. So I do all my own social media. I do all my own photography. I have an iPhone Pro, like a 12, I believe. It's
Mhm.
got a pretty good camera on it. I invested in a few replica surfaces, which are just cardboard surfaces that give you a different image so that you can showcase your bread or your desserts in a different way. And I like that because even though I like my kitchen, I don't think people want to see a static picture, the same background, the same photo, just a different. So I invested in those, and I can get a different look. I can create a different. I can create drama. I can create bright and clean. I can create so many different looks with those. But I think that for anyone who is thinking about starting a home business, you just have to embrace social media, whether you like it or not, because we don't have brick and mortars. And if you don't have a place that people can walk by and know you're there, you
Mhm.
have to, that is your pulse. That is your living and breathing entity of a business. And that's just something you have to do on a regular basis.
Mhm.
The more you do it, the easier it gets too.
Right, and you reuse things and
Hmm.
mhm. Great. And you're doing both Instagram, TikTok?
Yes, all I do is I'm resisting TikTok. All I'm doing is Instagram, and there's like an overflow into Facebook, so it kind of connects from Instagram to Facebook, and that's what I'm doing, and that seems to be working fine for me.
Right.
Hmm.
Um, Great. Another question from Janet. How many loaves are you baking for markets, if doing, and are you baking for orders placed? So I think in your case, you're sort of only baking for orders placed, right? Not really for the market.
Right, I'm preparing to do that. I'm gearing up for market. So, you have to figure out your stride because my wholesale buyer is, like you said, he seems to be ordering more and more, and I still have my regular private orders that I have to fulfill. I'm just hoping to see eventually if we max out with my wholesale buyer, then I'll know how much more I can give. There is only so much fermentation room, cold
Right.
fermentation room. So what's worked for me is since I'm baking all day on bake day, having things that you don't have to ferment, like quick breads, like bundt cakes, things that you can mix up while things are baking and use your gas oven for,
Yeah.
you're really now able to kind of double dip and utilize all that bake time to sell more. So
Yeah.
that's why I decided not to stay strictly sourdough. Decided to do both.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Robert is asking, can you talk a bit more about elaborate a bit more on the steam injection? I don't know, people do different things. I think Jenna is saying I steam for 3 seconds before loading, then I load, then I steam again for 3 seconds. Do you have any advice or I mean, we know, right, how more steam, and if you keep on releasing steam during the bake, you don't get a crust. So you make more of a sandwich loaf or a softer loaf. What do you, what's process or the procedure?
Yeah. Right now, I do a pre-steam, which is just 2 seconds, and then 5 seconds. Then I steam right when I finish loading, 5 seconds, and then 5 minutes later, I steam again. I think I'm going to be brave, and everyone tells me you don't have to steam the third time, that it's safe to steam just twice. Um,
Mhm.
but I find that my crust is very thin. I find that my crumb is very moist and fluffy. So, we'll see. I think you probably can get away with 2 steams, and that's it.
Yeah. And the oven, this oven holds steam really well, right? There's a seal that is very tight, so it doesn't leak. Some of the ovens I've used before, they seem to leak a lot of steam through the door.
Mhm.
So you need to like add a lot of water or spray a lot of water or whatever method you use. So that's actually helping. Megan is asking, did you ever try to outsource any of your social media work, or any kids, any
I, I
any teenage kids?
I haven't yet, Megan, but I'm so tempted to, because um, social media is a full-time job, and sometimes I'll take photos during my day, my work day, where I think, oh, this is a nice shot. I'm getting great lighting. And as I'm sitting down after my bake day is over and I'm watching TV with my husband, I'm like making a reel, or I'm posting some aspect of my workday. So sometimes the social media never ends. It's one of those things that you have to do on the regular. Um,
Mhm.
but I haven't done it yet. I don't feel like I have the profit margin yet to pay anyone for that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, it's almost need to be a volunteer, or I don't know, in exchange for free bread or something.
exactly. I would love that. That would be much easier.
I think Michelle is asking. She's asking. I've got also a FagMac 40. I used it a few times. Ruined my dough.
Hmm. Okay, so I guess my question would be, um, ruined my dough. How did it ruin your dough? Did you overmix possibly, and did it start to tear, where the gluten was overdeveloped? I would probably ask that. The second thing I would ask, what hydration are you at? Um, are you at a low hydration? Because a high hydration can take lots of mixing. A low hydration cannot. So,
Speed. I've always been wondering about the speed myself. I
mhm.
don't really. I put it pretty slow. It's sort of like, I know it's really slow. You can put it really, really fast. So I don't really figure that out. Like, I don't know. You put it really fast, or
I don't put it really fast, but it's not at this lowest setting. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. Um,
okay,
and it doesn't necessarily have a 10 or a dial, I could tell you.
okay,
It just has a mixer. But I know with the FAMAG that um, you can overdevelop your gluten. So I wouldn't suggest mixing your dough for over 10 minutes. Now, a high hydration dough might need more than 10 minutes, just because it's so slack because there's so much water in it. But if you're in a normal hydration, like 77% hydration or lower, I wouldn't recommend more than 10 minutes. And also remember, when you use your mixer, you're increasing friction and you're creating a lot of heat. So the longer you leave your dough in the mixer, the hotter it gets and the quicker it's going to ferment. So always do a pre dough. Like if it's the temp is 77 when you start, it might be 85 when you're done. So these are all things to kind of look out for, especially as things are starting to warm up, that you can overdevelop the gluten, especially when the heat goes up if you overmix. I hope that helps. Okay, I lost you, Stan. I can't hear you.
sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I noticed that you need to, you sort of like your temperature you want to end up at after mixing. You need to start out a little bit lower, right?
Right. So overmixing not only can break the gluten strands that you're trying to develop, it can also make it super hot where you can overproof your dough really easily. Yeah.
Jeremiah is asking what I think we talked about is discounts for commercial accounts. You said between 20 and 30%, right?
Yeah, anywhere 20 and 20. I do 25, but remember with every wholesale buyer, that is negotiable. So you just, you kind of have to look at your market, what things are selling for and what you're comfortable selling it at. So if 25 is too steep for you, maybe go 20, maybe go 18. Every wholesale buyer, remember this is you and that other person, and that's something you negotiate. So even though you don't have to do an industry, you might want to start at 15 and see if he'll negotiate up to 20. So these are things that you can do with your, if you have a really good product, you can negotiate.
Well, I think also for a lot of wholesale buyers, it's not just making the money on it; it's having an extra artisan, good, fresh product. It's very rare, right? So I think for them, it's more a bit of a leverage over, they're making toast of it, or it's pulling in traffic to sell coffee or something. So I don't think you need to just look at it from their side. It's often not just, maybe that's what they're going to tell you. But I think from the buyer side, it's not just making money on it. I to be honest, like, because they also need to deal with waste and leftovers. So I don't think it is their. I think their primary motivation is to have like very attractive, because that sells, right. That goes through other sales.
And also, I sell not only the loaves, I sell sourdough cookies. I sell hand pies that have sourdough crust in them that are made with whole grains that are freshly milled. So you have kind of your own. You're creating your own kind of market because these things you can't buy anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you have a unique item, they're going to want it. It's an attractive thing that people are interested in.
Yeah. Good. Adrian, she's asking. Adrian is asking. Do you use the 30 mixer for your soda breads or just pies? No, you're using it for soda breads, right?
I'm using it for my sourdough. I'm using it for my focaccia dough. And I'm also using it for my enriched doughs, like for my sticky bun dough, because that's also sourdough based. So I use it quite a bit, my mixer.
Right. Good. I think we're more or less through our questions and time. I would, would love to thank everyone for tuning in. We'll send a list of our favorite brands for storage grains. We'll also send a recording. I think Karen and I and other people in our network are always available to answer any questions. Is there something you would like to add, Karen?
No, if you have, I work with a lot of sourdough bakers. So if you have any questions, I have now 3 years of experience in this. I've had my bakery now for 2 years, and I'm still learning. And I still bounce things off of other sourdough bakers. We're kind of like a really close-knit community. We like sharing ideas. We like sharing, questions. So you can always DM me if you have any other questions. Just follow me at wildflower.la on Instagram. I've done some FaceTime videos using the Simply Bread oven. I have some people interested in doing that so they can get an idea of what it's like or what I do step by step in preparation for their Simply Bread oven. So if you guys have any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything that you have. I had a lot of questions, and I'm now in a place where I can answer some. So.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll send a link of the recording around soon. Hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.